Hello, welcome back to City Planner Plays, where we are building Clearwater County. And in today's episode, we are going to focus on developing some of these rural areas that we built in the previous episode. So this is going to be a really interesting build where we attempt to take some of these towns that we created and make them look alive. So we're going to get to that in just a moment, but there's a couple of things I've got to mention. First of all, in the previous episode, we were seeing some trash icons all over the place, places like this. And there is a reason for that. Our Jelly Districts mod is creating complications. As I created all the towns, I put these all in individual districts, and as a result, they will not be served by trash service. So that's a pretty significant issue for us. So as a result, I have disabled that mod. So that should resolve our trash problems. That is assuming we actually have capacity, which we do not. And part of this is one of the mods that we have enabled. I'm going to go through that in just a moment, but before I do that, I want to look at our budget because we're having some significant issues, and a lot of this is because of our policies. So early on in the build, I enabled the recycling policy, slightly reduced garbage accumulation, slightly reduced tax income. I think that's really harming us now. So that is something, maybe we should take a look actually into our budget panel to see what's happening here. So you can see that our weekly policy expenses are about $7,000. So that's a significant amount of money. So we are going to look at our policies and see if they make sense anymore. So this one, first of all, I want to disable it and see what it does. I'll speed this up to see if it improves things. And it doesn't seem to have an impact. And because we are dealing with a trash collection issue, we're going to re-enable that. Next, we have lightning rods. Now this one I know costs a lot. It's 1.6 cells per building. So I think if we disable this one, that's going to be a significant portion of our expenses. Wow. That was our expense. So I turned the fire department budget down at the start of the previous build, mainly because we're just really in a position where we're kind of struggling financially, and our fire department is very expensive. I did the same thing with the roads budget. Because of all the roads now and no income coming, we're paying a lot for the roads, and that's why you don't overbuild roads because they're expensive. But with the money that I saved, I could actually boost this back up. Maybe we'll go 75 for now and see. Then we'll go the full 100. And that should put us in a place where our budget's in a better spot and it's more effective for fire coverage. So I think that's a good change. That said, we've still got problems with our trash collection. So we have this facility over here, and what you'll notice is that one of them is emptying and the other is not. So the reason for this, if we go into the mods menu, we take a look at empty it, I have these thresholds to empty the landfill. Now this was set to end of day. I've changed it to end of month. And I guess it retains that setting if you play with it in between builds. So I didn't save, but it's still there. So that I'm hoping that improves things. But I know that the big issue that we have is we've got only these 2 recycling centers doing all the work. And ultimately what that means for us is that we've got trash all over the place. And that's going to impact our healthcare system. That's going to impact everything. So we are going to expand our recycling center. And for the sake of realism, I added this power line back in. I was going to add the recycling center onto this road, but this is an arterial, and I'm not all that excited about loading more traffic onto the arterial than I have to. So we will place that over here and kind of have a big complex of these. This will eventually be consolidated into a larger waste transfer facility and waste processing complex, but for the time being, this will have to do the trick. And that puts our processing status back in the green, and hopefully that improves things for us. So at the end of the last build, or maybe it was in the middle of it, I asked for some names, and I went through the comments, and you guys gave me so many great ideas. I feel very, very blessed that there are so many of you watching these videos willing to provide such great ideas. Your ideas make these builds better. They inspire me, and they they give me inspiration for what I'm going to do next. So I'm going to go through and update some of these names because there were some really good ones in here. Okay, we have a whole bunch of great names. Cape Rouge, which is French inspiration, kind of an ode to the original settlers of the area. Town of Dakota, a nod to the Native Americans that were originally in this area. Town of Clearview, a nod to the clear view to the bay. And then the town of Anchorton, which could have an interesting backstory someday. Town of Bradford, the town of Kambeska. I'm hoping I'm not butchering that, but that is a Dakota name for a lake or a body of water. So that was a great suggestion as well. Town of Crystal Creek. I love that because that gives a name to the creek. Town of Two Rivers, since this is at the kind of the confluence of those two rivers. Town of Prospect Heights. There was a good comment that this could be a mining town, so I actually moved that into the mountains. Town of Greyhawk, which could have farming at some point in time. And Sleepy Hollow, which I think is self-explanatory. So I really appreciate the names. Some great ideas there, and I'm happy to implement them. So to the meat and potatoes of today's build. So I have added a number of assets to this build, but they're going to look very familiar. So first of all, I need to get rid of prop anarchy because I'm going to mess everything up. So I added some assets to create farms that are going to they're not going to sap our production and our demand for industry. So that's my concern. Is I think that most of this would be rural land. However, as it currently sits, if I were not rural, I think most of this would be agricultural land. But as it sits, if I were to put in a bunch of farms here, I will never be able to build an industry for the rest of the build. So as a result of that, I'm not gonna go hog wild. Kind of an ode to Greyhawk. I'm not gonna go hog wild, adding a whole bunch of real farms. I'm adding prop farms that look like the real farms that we have. So this will give me the opportunity to pepper in some of those assets, make this look a little bit more legitimate, and add some homes to this area, which will be a huge help since our biggest need at this point is residential zoning. So the nice thing about that is it'll bring some life to these roads too. So every one of these squares is going to have at least one home, maybe two, maybe three, four. We'll have to see. But the first thing I want to do, we've got a lot of trees in here, and I think that we're going to remove basically all of the trees outside of trees along the interstate and along this rail corridor, and we're going to plant some along the bodies of water where they would naturally occur and would likely be undisturbed because of wetlands. So the very first thing that we're going to do is go into here to our tree brush. We'll increase the brush size to something significant, and I'm going to remove a whole bunch of trees. Okay, I'm going to get rid of most of the trees. I'm going to add some more back in, and many of these would just be covered up by farms anyway, which is the main reason I wanted to get rid of them. So at this point, what I want to do is go and select some of the trees that we have in our map, and we're going to change our brush size and just go along the water banks and add some more trees. I don't just want to have one kind of tree, so I'm going to select a couple and do the exact same thing. Okay, so I was pretty liberal with my placement of trees, but I think it makes a pretty significant difference. You see that the trees are right along the riverbanks, and that's where you'd expect to find them. You might even want to add some more down the line, but this is a good start. And I did leave an opening here in Clearview, considering we want to preserve the clear view. So let's get started. I think we're going to start out by adding some of our housing in place, because that's really going to dictate where everything else goes. So we're going to be very deliberate with our housing choices. Thankfully, we've divided up all of our land already. So we're just going to go through and kind of sprinkle some housing in. And then I think along the water, we might add a couple houses. Not all that many, but when we do add them, they're going to be close. They're going to be packed in. So So what I'm trying to do here is space the houses far enough that I could have a dividing line. So I want it to be logical. Like if the house is here, they have the entire parcel, or this is one parcel. If I add one here, I can add one over here if I want as well, and then divide this parcel in half where the road is. So that's kind of the method to my madness. Okay, so now we're pretty much set up here for development in terms of where our placement's going to be, but we have some work to do for power and water and all of the city services that this area would potentially need. So we're going to get moving on that quickly. So I am going to turn prop anarchy on for this. What I'm thinking is well, actually, we've got another issue, and that is I can't see where I've zoned. So I'll have to turn this off like this, and now I should be able to at least draw power lines along the road to these homes. Okay, so now we have most of our power connections made, but we don't have any of our water. Well, we have some of our water connections made. Maybe before I speak, I should look, because I could be wrong. We actually have many of our water connections made. So this is a remnant of a previous build. So you get to see a peek behind the scenes. I have clearly already done this, and I re-recorded the episode. Unfortunately, because of the save issue, I had to go ahead and delete things, and it looks like I missed a spot. So you can see where all my old roads were. These were at one point underneath the road where they belong. We're going to call this an easement to the water main that's underneath the highway, which would probably honestly be parallel to the highway and not underneath it, but it is where it is. So you can see that even when I practice my builds, I do some of the same things I do in the normal builds. Okay, and now we have water pipes underneath all of our roads, right where they belong, except for here. Except for here. Not enough money. That is going to be a problem for us, and potentially a reason that we turn down that fire budget again. Okay, let's slow this down. So one of the things that's going to be tricky about this entire build is making sure that our power lines are working. And you can see right here that what happened is this line. I don't know if this has power. I do not believe it does. We're going to just extend this out and make the connection right there. That should do the trick for us, and hopefully it fixes a whole bunch of our problems. Yeah, that does. So then there are some other areas like this one where the connection is still not being made, which is very curious. I guess it's maybe just because it hasn't developed yet. So maybe we're okay. Maybe we're okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is introduce some of our farming assets. So I have all of these decal farms, and they're really great decals. So we can go through here. We'll need to take the brush size down, and we're still not connected over here. Well, that's not going to work. There we go. That should do the trick. And all of those other buildings that we have open, that's kind of an issue that hopefully will resolve itself. It could mean, though, that for whatever reason, the power is not reaching there yet, and that would be something that we would need to be concerned about. So like this property in particular, I'm curious if I go ahead, just draw a power line connection, if that fixes it. It does not, so it's a demand thing, which is fine. Okay, so we have our props, and we have a couple of different ones. We have these smaller props. Then we have some of these odd props that are a little bit longer. This is a Dutch flower prop, which is kind of neat. And then we've got these props right here. I'm not exactly sure what kind of farm field that is, but it's one. And then we have these, it looks like wheat. And these, again, some sort of crop. But then we also have these. And some of these have more height to it. And they're really detailed. So veggies, wheat, and we've got some bigger ones. And this might look familiar. This is the exact prop that we used over here, or the exact farming asset that we used over here, but it's now a prop, which is really helpful for us if we want to cover large areas. Same thing here. Got our large cotton, got our lavender, wheat. We've got a little bit of everything. So you might wonder, well, how do I make this look okay? There's a lot here. Well, it's pretty simple, honestly. So we're gonna go into a prop line tool. And so what I figured out is that if you go down to 29 meters, you can make a pretty nice length of these. Just line it up with the road, and we're gonna use move it to get this to be perfectly straight. And then we can just duplicate this. Did not mean to take out all of those fields, but I did. So we're gonna go with it. Now you might be thinking to yourself, whoa, the edges on this are something else. It looks pretty bad, and I agree. So we do have a fix for that. I've added a couple of rural roads as well. So we've got Country Road 1 and 2, and they do different things. So let's take a look, and it looks like I accidentally went over the home with decals, which to me means I didn't get power out here again. So let's get power. It'd be really great if that home were actually built. Make this a heck of a lot easier to work with. So I'm just going to eliminate the couple of decals around there. We'll go back to this road that I was mentioning. So we'll go to road 1, and you see that adds a whole bunch of trees. And if I go ahead and let's say I have anarchy on, I can keep clicking that and it gives me different variations of trees, which is super cool. So these are some kind of country roads. So we are gonna have some of these paved roads, but I think after giving it some thought, we're gonna reserve those mostly for the main country road through here. So think of that as the county highway. And then we can come through here. If we wanted to get really tricky about where we're putting in these road assets, we could add some nodes through here. And then go ahead and upgrade so that we're not blocking the home with trees. So thankfully this is now developed with, this property is now developed. So it's going to be easier for us to get this filled in. And it's not going to be 100% perfect. There's going to be some funky overlap in a couple places. But this is a point where I say it's better to not let perfect be the enemy of good here. And I think that we accept a couple of oddities. And ultimately, at the view that we're going to see it most of the time, it's going to look pretty darn good. So one down and a whole bunch to go. So we're not going to get to all of these today, but I am going to finish this entire area down here. And one other thing, so you see that as I zoom out, the prop is disappearing. One way that we could resolve that is if we go in to ultimate level of detail. Right now, this is our prop decal fading. If I turn that up to 5,000, let's make it out a little bit further. 10,000 would certainly do the trick. I'm afraid of my my FPS would drop too. So maybe we'll refrain from doing that. So probably for the best. So then through here, we could do things like this. Just divide these up and then continue to add different sorts of props through here. And you see that together, you can see that they're farming different things. I think it looks really nice. That said, we're not going to go for the small decals for everything. Those are really small, and it's going to take me forever to be able to actually cover any significant ground with that. So for some of these, we are going to go, for instance, with these large wheat decals. So this is 16 by 16, which means that since we used the appropriate number of tiles, we should be able to make these work. And let's just upgrade these roads just to see. Took it right out. Well, we'll have to fix that. But I figured there would be some value in just upgrading some of this stuff right now. So I think that some of these, basically Lakeshore Drive is going to remain for this main road through here. And we're going to have to prioritize the movements at some point and maybe even make some connections outside of this area. But for the time being, we'll just kind of leave it as is. But that would be the kind of project I would absolutely expect to see in an area like this, seeing Lakeshore get upgraded. Or the movements prioritized, rather, not upgraded. Wow, look what that did here. That is wild. Big, ruddy mess. So I guess if I click on these a bit, I can create some of those ruts. That's kind of neat. I don't know that it fits the aesthetic in front of a house, but we can go for it in a couple places maybe. Okay, so I'm trying to not get overly crazy about, I could go through and add nodes for each house, but that's not really something I'm incredibly interested in, truthfully. One thing I am interested in is not having trees pop up in my road that has trees next to it. So I'm going to turn off prop anarchy for just a moment because I am setting myself up for disaster at this point. And it's curious, that house is not developing. We'll need to take a look at that. Okay, so now you can kind of see a gradual transition from the city into the countryside. We're going to need to do some work here on farms to get everything working as it should be. I think we're moving in a good spot. Let's get this wheat field done. So this is interesting. I didn't realize that these were going to be different colors, and I'm wondering if when I paste these, yeah, they remain that way. That is very curious. Oh, they're all different colors. Interesting. I did not expect that. Well, no worries there. I think that we'll just have to deal with a little bit of wonkiness. So what we may do is kind of mix this one up a little bit. So maybe they have some wheat in the back and some corn in the front. Yeah, that's nice. And then I can go through here and finish this off with corn. That didn't line up as well as I thought it was going to, which is disappointing, but totally fixable. I might just give him a nice big yard. So that covers a significant chunk of land, and I'm not sure which one I like more. I almost like these decals more, and truthfully, there might come a point in time where we want to go ahead and actually have some legitimate farms out here. But for the time being, I do think that this is a good solution. So I think, at least for this project, it does seem a bit easier to go ahead and use the smaller fields, kind of contort them to my needs, copy them. So I'm going to do some of that now, and we'll cut away, and I'll come back when more of this is done. Okay, and I'm going to give myself a little break to clean things up. And one thing I'm noticing is that because I have prop anarchy on, which I need, I'm getting trees in some areas where I don't want them. So I'm just going to go through and get rid of some of these. Now, another way that I could do this would be to use I have the better bulldozer. That's what it is. And I could just set it to trees only, and I don't think that'll take these out. Yeah, they're just decals, so that'll be completely fine. And I'm making good progress, but we've got work to go. So we're gonna keep on going on. We're not ending this episode until this is finished. Noticing I actually put no home over here, so we're gonna add one right here. And we'll need to add a power line for this as well. And I do think that we're going to leave some of these lots wooded as well. So we're going to simulate some of that in just a moment. And the way that we're going to accomplish that is going to be pretty simple. So first of all, let me go ahead. I'm going to divide this lot up, and we're going to have a couple of wooded lots over here. And I'm just going to, again, kind of do what I did on the water banks. We'll go ahead, increase our brush strength, make sure that we have prop anarchy off, add some trees through here, make sure that we have some variety, and then increase our brush strength as we go on. And some of these might just have larger lots and maybe have a division between the trees to basically show where the lot lines are, but that's about it. So we could certainly do that with some of these as well. And now I'm going to go turn prop anarchy off so I can kind of fudge this next to the power line. That's probably not advisable, but we're going to go with it. They want privacy. They're going to get it too. And then now that we have some of these done, we can go through and just kind of copy the work that we've done. So this makes it a ton easier for us. So I can go through here and see, which color haven't we used much of, and just steal a large chunk. So you've seen me use Move It to copy these a lot, and one of the reasons why I'm doing that is even if I'm only copying one, let's say I'm just copying this one, it's perfectly aligned with my other tiles, which is a huge benefit if you're trying to make it look well thought out and well planned. So that's the primary reason that you see me doing that. There's no other reason. It's just that it keeps things lined up nicely. So the trick I'm using here is I'm holding down the shift button, or I'm holding down my mouse button as I delete. So I delete the first one that I don't let go of my mouse button, and then it will only delete the kind of asset that you have selected. And I've mentioned this in some of my tutorials, but that's something I really like to be able to do. I think it really makes things a lot quicker. We are going to have some undeveloped lots through here, so I will just really fill them up with trees, and then portions of these lots as well, to kind of show that there are some old growth forests that still remain in the area. So rural areas are difficult. I mean, they're not simple to put together in the game, and it makes sense. This is city skylines, not cities or town and country life or whatever. So it does make sense that this is hard to do, but there are ways to accomplish it, and I do think that we're making some good progress. I'm gonna keep doing a bit more. Okay, and after seeing how nice some of this really dense forest looked, I decided to make a bunch of copies and then remove the trees after the fact. So we're gonna see if that was a terrible idea or not. I'm not 100% sure just yet, but we're about to find out. So I'm gonna basically remove some trees for yards from some of these really densely forested areas. And then we'll leave some fairly forested. You figure that some folks would want to clear the land, some would not. And then one of the other things, I wanted to check to see if it would go in the water. It will. So it'll let me paste it right into the water. So we are going to go along the water banks and just make sure we don't have any trees living in the water, because that doesn't make any sense. I think we're looking pretty darn good now. So I think we need to take a look at something, and I think it's a brief city tour. All right, so we've definitely made some progress on bringing part of this to life. I don't think that this is the kind of build I'm going to do back to back to back, because I think I will go crazy because it's a ton of work. But the result, in my opinion, is worth it. This, to me, when you look at this looks like farmland. This looks like rural countryside, and this is what I would expect to see. But you can see that, man. It is having an impact on my performance. What that will likely mean is that I need to go through and look at my LUT settings and my load settings rather, take things down a bit, and hopefully that improves things for me. And it does. Now it feels a lot more smooth, and that's really what I'm looking for. It's always finding that balance between things looking good and things looking good. So if you understand what I mean. And really that's a problem in this area. So there's lots more detailing that I could do here, adding fences, removing misplaced trees like these ones. And what you'll see is that as I do that, I just make more problems. So sometimes you got to know when to not let perfect be the enemy of good, because I'll tell you what, this looks about 1,000,000 times better than it did at the start of the day. And there are things we could do to make it even better. I'm not sure. Maybe just one thing. Maybe just one thing. At this point, it kind of feels like an odd omission to just not have any trees right here. We do have the clearing. There's no longer a clear view, though, when you go to take your dogs to the bathroom, which is something that we talked about as a priority before. So we're gonna have to maintain that view. Okay, and we have saved the view. If you are taking your dog out back on a road trip, you know, it's not perfect because of these. We can fix that too. One more thing that we can fix. There we go. We have preserved the view, and we still have undeveloped properties, which is a bummer. It tells me that we didn't finish getting all of our power out there, but these are the sorts of things that I'd rather fix. Get those properties online, not things like, you know, is everything 100% perfect? Because I want to get back to building towns. And eventually, someday, this might develop into a small village or something along those lines. But for the time being, I'm pretty pleased with where this ended, and I hope you are as well. If you like this, hit the like button. If you aren't subscribed, please consider doing so. And if you want to be notified when I release new videos, hit that notification icon. I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.